We're going to look at some of the key ideas on angles on figures and angles and parallel lines. So we want to try to make sure we understand the naming of the angles and what some of the properties are. So the first example I want to look at is the idea of vertical angles. So we have two intersecting lines right here. These two angles are vertical angles. We also have vertical angles here and here. Now, one of the important facts is that vertical angles are congruent, which we're going to frequently use. It's probably the easiest one for us to recognize. Another one that comes up, we have two angles right here that are forming a straight line. We call this a straight angle. So A and B, we say, are a linear pair. They form a line. What's important about A and B is that they're supplementary, or they add up to 180. So I know that A plus B is equal to 180. So when we have to give a reason, we could say that A and B are a linear pair. We also have to worry about things like right angles. So remember, the little squared off mark means it's a right angle. And sometimes we could take advantage of this. So for example, C and D, when I put them together, they also form a right angle, because it's 90 degrees on this side, it has to be 90 degrees on the other. So in this case, C plus D is equal to 90 degrees. So we want to understand kind of working around our figures to be able to pick up some of these ideas. Okay, so now with parallel lines, typically what we're going to look at, now one thing that's really important is we have to look to see if the lines in fact are parallel. But we need to know the name of some of these different values. So these two angles right here, you can imagine if I pick up this angle and I slid it up until it matched that one, they call that corresponding angles. So another corresponding angle I could have, we could have this angle right here is corresponding with this angle right here. Now, if these lines are parallel, then these angles, the corresponding angles, are congruent. So you want to recognize corresponding angles. We look for the idea of parallel lines. Now, usually when we label the parallel lines, we put little arrows on them like this. If K and J are not parallel, those are still corresponding angles, but they're not necessarily congruent. So we have to look out for those kinds of issues. So watch for the parallels, look for the symbols like this that indicate that two lines are parallel, and that does not mean those two lines are equal when they put this little notation on it. So shortcut notation, parallel lines, then corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, these are called alternate interior angles. So notice they are on the inside of the parallel lines, and they're on opposite sides of what's called the transversal. That's this line in between it. And again, if the lines are parallel, so if this line was parallel to this one, then the alternate interior angles are congruent. So this angle will equal that angle. Now again, we have other alternate interior angles right here. This angle and this angle, those two angles are also alternate interior. So when lines are parallel, the alternate interior angles are congruent, and a short and a cut way of doing it is say parallel, the little arrow, alternate angles are congruent. These two angles, well, those two are not necessarily going to be congruent. They're called same side interior. Now for same side interior, these two, notice the angles are different. I'll mark these. The same side interiors are not congruent, but they are supplementary when the lines are parallel. So these two lines again are parallel. These two angles, the ones on the same side, they're on the inside. So that's what we're looking for. And they will add up to 180 degrees. So that's what it means to be supplementary. They add to 180. Again, shortcut, same side interior angles are, and you can say sup if you like. Okay, so we're going to have some questions here. about the different angles and see if you can identify them. Okay, other key angles. Remember that when you have a triangle, sum of the angles in a triangle is equal to 180. Most of you remember that. The one that's a little bit newer for some students is this idea of an isosceles triangle. The angles opposite the equal sides in a triangle are congruent. So D and F are congruent. So the measure of angle D will equal the measure of angle F. So let's go through and talk about developing our reasons and what we're working with. And these are the problems that were on the SIG test. A lot of people had struggled with. They struggled with these ideas. So first of all, I want to figure out what is x. I want to give reasons for it as well. So I'm finding a value of x. So what I would do, let's highlight x. So it uses this line and this line. Okay, well, let's take a look at those two lines. This line extended out, continues all the way down this way. And this line continues this way. Well, look where I'm connected. So I'm looking for the parallels. There's parallels. I want to work with this parallel here. So the pieces that are connected, this line, and a line cutting across it, I want to work in just this part up here. So that's going to be real important when you kind of look at these problems. So now, right now, there's a lot of confusion and everything else on the screen. So I'm going to clear my screen. Okay, so let's see about getting some of our reasons. I'm trying to get to x, but now again, I want to use this line and then these two parallels. So I'm looking at the upper half. So to get to x, I could do all kinds of different things. Well, one of the easiest ones is to use the idea of vertical angles. D and H are vertical. So I could say angle H is equal to 55 degrees. My reason is it's vertical to angle D. Well, once I know this one's 55 degrees, I can slide it over and match x. So angle X equals 55 degrees because it's corresponding with angle H. And if I really wanted to be good, I would say parallel, then corresponding angles are congruent. We never use the 131, so that you have to watch out for those distractors. Let's look at the bottom figure. There's lots of ways of doing this particular problem, so we're just going to look at different combinations that may help out. Okay, so again, we're looking at x. We have x is formed from this angle, this side, and then this side right here. Well, one of those sides is a parallel, so I'm probably going to be using this other parallel side in some fashion. We want to kind of use our information. Well, most students, what they did on this particular problem is they try to fill in what they did know. I've got two parallel lines, so I could say angle K is equal to 70 degrees because we have its alternate interior to angle D. Notice how these are on opposite sides, they're alternate interior, so I know that K equals 70. Well, I could say angle E is equal to 43 degrees. It is vertical to angle B. Now I've got this angle 70, this one is 43, so I could use the sum of the angles in the triangle. So adding those two together, I have angle R plus 70 plus 43 equals 180 degrees. And this is basically our triangle sum. Well, we have 113, so that means that angle R is equal to, if I take 180 minus 113, I will get 67. So we have 67 degrees as angle R. Well, if angle R is 67, angle X and angle R are a linear pair, so angle X equals 113 degrees because angle X and angle R are a linear pair. Okay, there's other ways of doing this problem. Some students, they figured out that this was 70, this was 43, figured out angle F, and then they used same side interior. So right here, this angle F would have been 67, then same side interior to X, it must be 113. That was a little bit faster way of doing it. A few other variations, but you just kind of look at the figure and you want to try to figure it out. Okay, this is the other one, the last sig test. So again, we're going to try to fill in our reasons. So first I would say, look for the easy things. Angle F equals 64 degrees. Need a reason. Vertical. 2K. We already know those are congruent. So I know this is 64. If C is 113, angle D is equal to 67 because angle C and angle D are a linear pair. Well, now I know that one's 64 and that one's 67. So now I can use the sum of the angles in the triangle again. Or some people, what they'll do also, I could done angle K is 64, angle B is 64. I could figure out that angle A was 67, either using alternate interior with D, or know that A and C have to add up to 180, so that's 67. But either way, either I use a straight angle right here where all these add up to 180, or I can use some of the angles in the triangle. It's all up to you in terms of what you kind of see. So I know that 67 plus 64 plus X is going to equal 180. And that's basically, again, our triangle sum. Okay, well, this, when I add these together, I get 131 plus X equals 180. X is going to equal 49 degrees. Okay, for this other one, again, look for your parallels. I got a parallel here, parallel here. X is formed by the parallel line and this line. I'm using this part of the triangle again. So several ways you can do it. You could say angle X equals angle C. They are corresponding angles. And we had parallel, so corresponding angles are congruent. We have parallel, then we have corresponding angles congruent. So that means that X and C are the same. And I've got angle B plus angle C equals 180 because they're a linear pair. So that means that angle C would be equal to 180 minus 62. So we have 118 is angle C. Well, angle X equaled angle C, so angle X equals 118 degrees. We already explained it up there. Now I did that in a little different order, but maybe that's where you could have seen it. So you just have to kind of work your way through and then try to figure out the different parts of the triangle. Okay, so I'm going to have you do this one, and then we're going to fill in the reasons that we would use to figure out the answer for angle X. Okay, again, we are going to try to fill in the reasons to find the measure of angle X. Okay, here's some additional sample problems for some of the other ones that we've had. Just trying to use what you know and help to try to figure them out. So let's look at this one. We have a straight angle here. Notice the right angle, that's 90 degrees. Well, that means this angle here is 90 degrees also. So if I take 2x minus 5 plus 4x plus 11, it has to add up to 90 degrees. So if we add these two angles together, I get 6x plus 6 is equal to 180. Now solving, I get 6x is equal to 174. And if I do 174 divided by 6, I get x equals 29. Now remember, you got to make sure you read the question. It says find angle PQR. Well, angle PQR, this is angle P, Q, R is this whole angle here. So first thing we do is figure out what this angle is up here. So I do 2 times 29, and I subtract 5, and I get that angle is 53. I'm having trouble writing my pen. So 53 degrees. Okay, so now to get angle PQR, I just have to take 53 plus 90. So angle PQR is 53 degrees plus 90 degrees, so it's going to equal 143 degrees. Okay, let's try another one. Measure of angle CAT. Well, I've got a triangle here, but again, try to figure out what you do know. Well, if this is 62, I can figure out this one. It's just going to be 118. I know I'm going to try to figure out what angle CAT is, so I need to figure out what the angle is on this side. But right now, first I want to figure out what x is. So if I add up all the angles inside the triangle, I have 4x plus 120 has to equal 180. So 4x equals 60, x is equal to 15. Once you know that x equals 15, these two angles have to add up to 180. So therefore, angle CAT would have to be 165 degrees. So for these kinds of problems, you're not going to have to go through and give all your reasons, but you have to be able to think your way through it. You have to know what the reason is in your head. Okay, so let's look at some of the ones that were from the SIG test. Again, we're going to try to figure out what this angle CAT is. So I got to put both those together. Well, again, 90 degrees here, and that makes this angle here 90. So that tells me that 3x plus 15 has to equal 90. So 3x equals 75. I get x is equal to 25. Well, once I know x equals 25, if I want to find CAT, I just got to find each of these individually. We already know this angle is 90. This would equal 53. So for angle CAT, it's combining those together. That's 143 degrees. So again, look at what you have for your information. These two form a straight angle, or they're a linear pair. So you got to remember when you put these together, it's x minus 10 plus 153 is equal to 180. So you're not setting those equal to each other. That was a common mistake that was made. So x plus 143 equals 180. x is going to equal, when I subtract 143 from 180, I'm going to get 37. Okay, so now I want to find the measure of angle MED. Well, let's fill in all the angles I do know. So if x is 37, that makes this angle here 27. Then I could do 37 times 3 plus 4, and I get 115 degrees up here. Then I've got 115 plus 27 plus, I'm just call it y for now, equals 180. So now 115 and 127, and 27 is equal to 142. So y is going to equal 180 minus 142, which is equal to 38 degrees. So this angle right here is equal to 38 degrees. Okay, from the last SIG test, this time we have isosceles triangle. So if this side is 43, this side equals, this angle equals 43. This one opposite is 43. So this guy is 43 as well. If I add those two together, I get 86. Well, that means the remainder part right here has to add to 180. That makes this angle here 94, which makes this one 94. Then again, use the sum of the angles in a triangle, adding up all these angles. Well, I've got 5x, negative 3 plus 4 is 1, plus 94 is 95, equals 180. So I've got 5x is equal to 85. Then 85 divided by 5 is 17. Okay, again, we're going to answer our question. I need to find angle TAG. So angle TAG is equal to 3 times 17 plus 4. I just replaced the x. So that means that angle equals 55. Okay, we're told that angle MEN is congruent to NET. It's also marked on here. So if those are congruent, that means this angle has to equal 3x minus 11. Well, notice right here, you got to look really carefully. These three together form a straight angle. So if I add up all three of those angles, all three of these, then I know it's going to have to sum to 180. So we've got 64 plus 3x minus 11 plus another 3x minus 11 equals 180. So I got 6x, got negative 22 and 64, be plus 42 equals 180. Subtract 42 from 180 and I get 138. And then take 138 and we would divide it by 6. We got 23. So now I know x equals 23. We want to find the measure of angle TED. So plug in 23 in for x, and then I can figure out what this angle is here, and then I can use 180 minus that angle to get my answer. So 23 times 3 is 69, minus 11 would be 58. And then angle TED is going to equal 180 minus 58. So when I subtract 180 from 58, I get 122 degrees. Okay, so these are some of the examples, and hopefully this helps out.